going to call this meeting to order, and we have minutes from 2 meetings, and we'll do December 5th first. What would you like to do?
I'll move that we approve the minutes from the select board meeting of December 5th.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then we have the minutes from our work session on the 12th.
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes for the 12th.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
I'll abstain.
All right. We have, moving on, warrants 13, the payroll 13P, and cemetery number 1.
I'll make a motion, we approve the warrants 13, 13P, and cemetery number 1.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? So, warrant 13 is for $33,322.34. That includes a monthly rescue payment of $3,620, payroll transfers, highway department expenditures. We had the fall cleanup of all the cemetery, the properties around town. Building maintenance at the town garage, and there was a $15,200 bill from VLCT for insurance, and then our monthly sheriff's bill. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Then we move on to recognition of visitors and public comments. If there's anyone who has a comment that's not on the agenda that they'd like to bring up now, this is a good time. But if you're waiting for something on the agenda, all right. So, with the board's permission,
I did have one thing about the, are you moving on from public?
no, I'm going to invite the Dummerston Cares.
Oh, okay, good. Yep,
All right.
got it.
With your permission, we'll ask Dummerston Cares. They had sent us a letter.
Go, you we're gonna stand, we're in this together. All right, let's stand or sit? No.
Yes, you can sit. Let people
We don't have to deal.
Let's go around and introduce, just in case we don't all know everyone here.
So I'm Bill Schmidt with Dummerston Cares, and let me just, you know Susan Dagler, I'm sure, and Leslie Fishelman, who some of you may not know. We're all on the board of Dummerston Cares, all volunteers, and there are 3 of the 4-member committee that has spent several weeks researching and talking about emergency preparedness and management. So,
Okay.
One,
Were we gonna go around and introduce ourselves? Yeah, so, Maria, you wanna?
Maria Glader.
Louis White.
Okay, Zeke, good band.
Geraldine Wilson.
And Hugh Worden.
Great.
okay, so this, because of some of the services that we offer, we from Dummerston Cares are in contact with some of the more vulnerable people in Dummerston. People who can't drive, elderly people living alone, and so on. And some of our members became quite concerned or brought up the concern, and we all agreed it's something to address. How are these people going to fare in an emergency of some sort, a long power outage, a washed out road, or something like that. And one of the things that, a little bit of research we found out about Vermont Alert that people can sign up for. Now, a lot of elderly people living alone don't have a computer, and you have to have one to sign up for Vermont Alert. We want to facilitate, getting those people signed up if they choose to sign up. And then there's another service called CARE that people with special needs, say somebody on oxygen or mobility impaired or whatever, can register with that. And it doesn't come into play until somebody calls 911, but then that special information is relayed to the first responders. And we want to help facilitate getting people enrolled in these programs. And then whatever else we can do to help you, the board, as the emergency management committee or chairman, what else can we do to help keep people in Dummerston more safe, to enhance safety? Yeah, do we have your permission to proceed with this as a function, you know, because it's so closely involved with emergency management, we didn't want to, you know, step out of bounds. We don't want to overstep our, what we ought to be doing, but we'd like to help, and we're offering to do this.
Okay, what do you think?
Anybody offering to help, I think is a good thing. So my thing would be do what you feel is right to do and get back with us and
Okay.
let us know what you, I mean, that's how I look at it.
Okay.
I think there are a lot of people who fall between the cracks and can't take advantage of Vermont Alert or CARE. So I'm in contact now with an elderly woman who lives alone on a second floor, and she's so impaired health-wise that she can't walk down the stairs to the first floor. She needs people from the fire department to carry her and take her to a medical appointment.
Wow.
If an emergency happens, she's alone. And there are more people like her in town than we're aware of. So those are the kinds of people we're concerned about.
So, in the emergency plan, the emergency plan that Dummerston has, we're basically addressing section 4, which is how you get information out to people. And we have a number of things that we're going to do in terms of signing people up, and also trying to get people to sort of let us know if they have concerns about their neighbors, because often people don't self-identify. So we're going to put out a pretty big mailing. We're going to put stuff on the website, an article in the Views. We're going to do, I think, all of that. And then we're going to try to organize neighborhoods. I don't know how this is going to work, we don't know. But we're going to get people to sign up if they have interest in helping sort of coordinate things, getting information out to their immediate neighborhoods. And we're going to see if people sign up for that and give us their contact information, in the hopes that we can actually do some kind of a modified map my neighborhood kind of thing, which I think would be very useful to have, you know, for the one time you need it, because it's not like this is a hurricane zone or an earthquake zone, but we still have weather and other kinds of issues. So that's it, and we just want to know if it's okay.
Lee Chamberlain?
Yeah, so I was gonna bring up tonight to the select board, Rich Cogliano was gonna meet us up here on Friday at 10 to go over some of the stuff up at the EOC. And one of the things what came up was the list that we have of special needs. And he was saying that, that it would be almost better to start over with a new list. I know Susan's seen it, or, you know, have dealt with it. And our hope, or what I wanted to bring up, there's a lot of stuff up there that we don't need right now. Pretty much anything to do with radiological. There's actually some older food and drinks that we're gonna clean out, and those kind of things, so it might go along with it, and he would have a lot of information, useful information.
That's Friday?
Yeah, at 10 o'clock.
Okay. Would you like me to come?
If you guys have questions for him, I would, but it'd be the perfect time to ask him.
Okay, I believe I can come, I'll see. I don't have my calendar with me, but I'll try.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just the kind of thing that's important, is the communication among groups that are trying to,
Yes.
and have responsibility for the town. So I think your efforts are really, really important, and, you know, our role as the select board, we talked about it, and, you know, with Vermont Yankee, not a player in this and not having the funds for one person, things get more complicated. And so my question is more about how it then continues. So, you know, this is a transition time, and
Yes.
and you guys are stepping forward, and that's awesome, and you'll do what you do, and Lee has a big role in this, and we have a responsibility, and the town office in general will play a role. But I want us also to all be thinking about, you know, how this goes on as the people change, and so however that list of people is maintained and then kept up to date, I think, you know, the select board, it's important somehow to also carve out the way the communication will happen on a regular basis, not
Yes.
just randomly or because someone thinks of it.
So can you help us with that, since we're willing to do pretty much anything that is needed, but, you know, we communicate very well among ourselves, and we communicate with Rich also. But in terms of communicating with you, how would we close that loop? Because my understanding is that the select board holds the plan. The emergency plan, in other words, that's, you're Zeke, right?
Yes.
Yes, so Zeke is the emergency manager essentially.
Actually, the board.
Okay,
Yeah,
the
the
board
board
is
as a
absent-
whole,
in
which
the
of course
absence
makes
of,
it a little harder.
Yes,
director, the
so
board
who,
becomes-
who would be then the person that we contact? Because we're trying to get a list that we can actually share, because we can't get the 911 lists because of all of this confidentiality stuff. So who within this group would we share things with? Will we come to a select board meeting, or would we contact a
That
person?
probably is a good way of doing it, and if it's sensitive information, then we'd go into executive session. So, you know, to protect
Okay.
privacy.
That's the, first of all, what you're doing is more of a traditional community outreach. What I see, you know, you're like a group who is, you know the people, you've got the personal contact, so you're
We know
creating
some.
that.
We know some of them.
Or
We don't
many
know a
we
lot
don't.
of them.
But you're making the effort to do it. But with that being said, as you, what keeps coming back to me is this list you're creating. This list you're creating is a list of potentially vulnerable people. And if that list is ever disclosed inappropriately, you're actually creating more harm than good if that got to the wrong people. So I just, as you create this, you've got to, you really need to have a policy amongst
Well,
yourselves.
we've talked about that
Okay.
at length.
Because that's something that really strikes me, unfortunately, but that's a fact of, you know, life, if that got out, you know. And then, I don't, the overlap is, I mean, I think, like you said, come to a meeting once in a while and just let us know what's going on, but there's gonna be a separation, you know, we're gonna, if the emergency, we've already tried to identify what's most likely gonna happen now. Probably a weather event, like, you know, an ice storm,
Yes.
massive power outages. That's the most likely thing, like we had back in '97 or '98, you know, just north of here. But, you know, I think the select board would have their role at that point, along with the fire department and everything else, trying to begin how we're gonna open the roads. That's really our function. We're gonna get the roads open, which then enables everything else to take place. And I think during that time is when we would probably come together, and then you would be like, this is, you know, here's our list, or this is who we need to go see, or maybe we're gonna help you get together with the highway department to make sure we get a specific road opened up to get to someone. So, I mean, in my opinion, in the short time that I'm gonna have left, is really, you know, an occasional meeting, coming in here and just kind of tell us what you're doing. And then anything that's really gonna involve resources, we are gonna activate as the emergency board, and then hopefully have someone from your Dummerston Cares come in, and then we'll start to coordinate there. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's, I think.
But we need a point person. See, the confusion, when I called you the emergency management director, part of it comes from the operations plan, where you're listed as the emergency management director.
Right, someone has to sign it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
So,
you know,
you could
and
go to
then-
the chair, whoever's the chair at that time.
yeah, so
Would be a
you,
good
the
place.
chair would be called, whoever that is. Are these plans, by the way, this one, the operations plan, and there's a mitigation plan, they're to be updated yearly,
Every
they
year,
say?
just
are
after
they?
town meeting. And they're going to, they have a revised form that we're going to have to
Okay.
complete after town meeting.
Yeah,
So just to update, the contact information and other
mhm.
items in there.
So I think it wouldn't be a bad idea for Dummerston Cares to have in your annual calendar that you come and inform the select board in April every year. Just so that it's a regular thing that happens on an annual basis. I don't think it needs to happen quarterly or certainly not monthly, but on an annual basis, if it's part of your repertoire of activities, to come and talk with the select board, that would be useful. And then if there were an emergency of some kind, even if it's a lower level one, for us to then, after the fact, say, well, how did we do? How did that go, and what did we learn, and how could we do it better? That's always valuable, but that's,
Sounds good.
Is there more that you feel we could be doing, or is there something that you were hoping we would say that we haven't?
I think the only issue for me is I would love to have a person, but you're saying it should be the chair of the select board.
Yeah, if you need
whoever that
one
is.
person, I think.
That would be
Because
the
we're gonna
easy
be
one.
getting information over the next, say, 3 or 4 months. And each bit of information is useful if it's someone who needs help, right? Who you might not know about. So we would like to be able to, in an ongoing way, communicate that to whoever holds this information as the emergency manager, and then it can go wherever you think it needs to go. Because
You mean this list of vulnerable people?
yeah, in other words, if somebody is living down the road and doesn't have a car and is in a wheelchair and we will check all this out, but doesn't have access to help, so no family members, no good friends, that's a vulnerable person, right? So we ourselves are not gonna be necessarily, the emergency director who's gonna communicate that. So we were thinking, since you hold the plan, it would be, the best thing I can think of, since this is part of the plan, is to give you that information as it comes in. So who else could we give it to if not you?
I don't know, but I thought you were saying that that's what Dummerston Cares was going to be responsible for. I don't think the select board wants to be, I think we would designate the responsibility to Dummerston Cares. I mean, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, Zeke, but we're figuring this out in a moment. I don't think the select board is the right body to be responsible for a list of vulnerable people in Dummerston.
What do other people think?
Well, I think the select board would be, I mean, we're.
Would you?
Yeah, we're the emergency manager director.
Yeah.
And
We are the director, so we would have that list, and that's where we would put it out to the road foreman saying, guess what, we need this road open. Dummerston Cares I wouldn't feel would be that person to do that. I think it would be the select board or the emergency manager director, which we are. I think that's who would.
That's the emergency management director had control over it when Vermont Yankee was still operating, and it was kept confidential. And as, even though I was involved with that for 30 years, I only saw that list once.
Yeah.
That's how confidential it was kept.
Yeah, I definitely believe that it would be, that would be who is in charge of that list. I don't think it should be anybody else except for that.
Okay, and so Louis, is that what the plan would be? So the select board's responsible for that list, and then our job is to know all the addresses of those people, and our job is to have the roads open. That's all our responsibility is to have the roads open? I mean, like, what would we do?
No, we would go further than that. I mean, we are in charge of the safety of the residents. As the emergency manager director, we have to do the best of our ability to help whoever needs help. That's
Yeah, but,
in the
yeah, but
emergency.
we would designate certain activities. I mean, Lee has a certain responsibility. We're not gonna go do things, we're gonna make sure things are
Oh,
done.
absolutely, yes, that's being in charge of that list. We're not gonna have Lee have half the list as the road foreman, the fire department have half the list.
No.
We're gonna have the list and we're gonna say, okay, here, say it's a flood, okay? It's the West River flooding. We know where the area is, and now we look on that list. Do we have anybody out on Camp Arden Road? Do we have anybody out here that needs this help? Here's what we have to do. Lee, we've got people out, on this road, on Quarry Road, that need help. We're not gonna go there ourselves. Well, we might, but we're not necessarily gonna go there personally and,
Right.
pick somebody up and help
I'm
them
just
out.
not even, I'm glad that you're describing this in this way. I'm not even sure I would know what to do. So as a select board member who's responsible for this, I would wanna make sure that we had a training. That, okay, so we're responsible for this list, and if this happens, then this is likely, scenarios. So, because I wouldn't know what I needed to do in an emergency unless I was trained.
Yeah, I think we're really, because, we used to have the emergency manager who, that was our designee that we paid to
Right.
manage this. We don't have that, so we actually, he's right, we are now responsible for that. This is still a volunteer organization, so we're gonna maybe enlist their assistance.
We're a volunteer
but-
organization.
But we're not going to, we're the fourth lowest paid selectman in the state, right? So we're really professionals. But I agree, but it's a slippery slope because it's a new role for us.
Yes,
and-
thank you.
And so there's two things that could happen. One, if you tend to, give it off to someone else, then you lose control of something you should have control of.
Okay,
So
fine.
but that being said, I like the fact that you're working to help us coordinate this, and just understand you're helping us. You're kind of taking the lead, but you're really helping us.
Just a little
Because
nudge.
it is a job that, that we may have, it may have kind of slipped by the side as the
Yes.
emergency management went down, so that's
Yeah.
good. I don't know if we're prepared to manage that list appropriately. And when I say that, I mean security-wise, like that list can't be sitting out in our pile of folders. That list
but
can't
we
be.
do have a vault here.
Yes.
We can
It
handle some
can't be on paper and maintain it. I mean, the paper list is a
Yeah,
moment in time.
So this is.
It's
probably
gotta be
something
on a
we've gotta-
computer
we've
somewhere.
gotta
Yeah.
work through.
It's
I
a
don't know.
database.
I don't know about that. I mean, if
Yeah.
computers go down,
Well, no, I mean, you need a print copy, but that print copy is a moment in time. It's not an up-to-date list. The up-to-date list is on a computer.
But
If we're talking paper, we're in the dark ages,
But I think we're all capable of, if an event happened and we had that list, if all four of you are out of town, and I was here by myself, intuitively who you're gonna call to help. I'm not gonna get in my truck and drive out there. I'm either gonna call Lee, or I'm gonna call rescue, or I'm gonna call the state police. We're really a conduit for the information to get to the person who's gonna do it.
Exactly.
So, you're right, you know what, we probably need to maintain this list, and we need help to do that.
Help to
But then we
create
have got
To
to figure
create
out
the
how
list.
we
Create it,
keep
We
maintain it,
have
and
some
keep it up to date.
We have
Yeah.
some ideas.
We have
So-
a bunch of things. We'll
Yeah.
help create the list, and as we get the list, though, I think it should be given to you,
Yeah.
so that,
We'll take it
so
from
that
you,
you, and
and
then
we'll
we,
keep it secure.
and you keep it secure.
And it
And we will do the same thing in terms
Yes.
of, as we're
Yeah.
generating this list, we will keep it secure.
And then
And we'll keep updating
the
it, because
need
it's going to go on our
arises, we'll have
website.
this to use.
What's gonna go on your website?
Not the list, but the ability to let us know
Yes.
if you need
Good.
help and contact information so we can call.
Yep,
We're not storing anything on the website.
Yep.
You know, we're probably gonna put it in hard copy.
Yep.
And just keep the copy in the committee and hand it off to you, and then you can keep it and we'll keep updating.
but don't you agree with me, Louis? I mean, in terms of where it lives, and we need to, I guess, discuss that, but that it wants to be on a computer somewhere, not hard copy?
Well, you'd want it on both. I mean,
Okay.
because I'm saying,
Okay.
you can't, I mean, you can say dark ages, but computers can crash.
Oh, no, no,
And so
no.
I'm saying you need it on both. I mean,
But
it's-
where it gets updated is on a computer, and then
Yes.
you print out the most recent copy. So the ultimate store of it, the storage of it is
Well, wherever you
on a
want,
computer.
however you want to do that. I mean, that's
guess-
not
yeah,
here,
this
is
nor
something-
here nor there, really. I
Yeah.
mean, it's gotta be updated and it's gotta be, we've gotta have copies of it. A
Yeah,
hard copy and
totally,
computer, so.
I mean,
absolutely.
this is something, I don't foresee this changing, it's not gonna be that dynamic, I mean, it's gonna change on occasion, but as soon as you had a change, then I guess that's where you would also be helping us, is you just call up and say, hey, can we come in, and it's a 2-minute, we got an update, got, thank you, we move on. You know, I don't- It's not gonna be, it's not gonna be that, it's not gonna happen that often, I don't think, we're just,
No, but we need a system.
we do, and
We need a
I
system.
think that,
It doesn't get updated on a piece of paper
The
and
easiest
put back in,
system
it gets
is-
updated on a computer, and then you print out a new copy with a new date.
the easiest
You know.
system is, I think, you see a change, you ask to come in and provide us the change.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah, and we're really glad for that,
Yeah.
that support,
And we
it's really
should work
important.
with Lori on where we're going to keep this, what computer we're going to use. As far as training goes, Rich Cogliano offered to do a training, and we had one scheduled that
Right, in
kept
the summer,
getting moved along, so we should
yeah, reschedule some.
reschedule for after town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead with that.
Well, that was good, I think you exposed a gap that we, may have, anyway, I think you brought something up that's of value. Thanks.
Thank you.
One point that Leslie mentioned that I think really needs to be understood in terms of identifying, quote, vulnerable people. So we do that, but that doesn't mean the people we're identifying think of themselves as vulnerable people. And so in terms of people that we know should be contacted because they don't get Vermont Alert, they're not on the care registry, and the ideal would be for them to say, okay, CARES, put us on your list and let us know through Lori's email list or by telephone if an emergency occurs. Self-identification on their part. If they don't self-identify, then it can get tacky in terms of relating to them. They may be upset and annoyed because we've categorized them as vulnerable people. So, it's a dance in terms of how this plays out. And like the woman I mentioned before, I doubt she would self-identify. Her family is not in town. But if something happened, she needs to be careful.
And so your point is,
I'm just pointing out the difficulty of this subject, vulnerable people,
okay,
and relating to them
yeah,
in any way.
We'll also use different language, we're not gonna use vulnerable people. It's not gonna be a list that says vulnerable people.
So if they don't want to be on your list, you can't put them on the list.
So, well,
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 can we or can't we? Do I just let this woman hang? And there are a lot of such people in town. So,
Well, you're gonna have to annotate whether self-identified or you're just gonna say, this is someone we suspect as a Boone person, and then that may affect how we
Yeah.
contact them or reach out to them, but.
Right.
I mean, some of this, not, you know, I mean, there's a lot of people that just don't want people to know what's going on with them, and I can
Right.
empathize with that.
I
But
mean-
it's nice to have someone who's aware of them.
Yeah, I was impressed when Irene happened, hearing that in Marlboro, you know, they had a call to every single person that they knew was, you know, may need help. You know, do you, you know, it was a question but they had that list. It was like, wow, that's incredible. So, you know, I see
Yeah.
you guys doing the same thing, and, yeah, you don't impose help on somebody, but at least you know how to
You offer it.
contact them, you offer it, and,
and if we're able to establish neighborhood groups
yeah, that's perfect.
with a
Absolutely, yeah.
person in each neighborhood who's the coordinator, you know, when telephone calls get made on a phone line, you know.
Cool,
Okay.
great, thanks for your work.
Any questions from people? All right. Let's see, you also, in your letter, made a request to the Miller Fund. And do you want to deal with that now, or do you
Sure,
want to?
yeah.
Go ahead,
Okay.
okay, since we have you sitting here.
Okay, well, the Dummerston Cares exists to serve all the people in Dummerston, not just senior citizens. And in an effort to spread some caring around a little more, one of our board members contacted the school nurse to find out what needs might be going unmet there. And the school nurse was quick to tell us that there were children without proper winter outerwear, and that there are a couple of families that struggle with food during recesses because the kids rely on free school lunch. So we jumped in and provided some of that type of stuff. And then a member of the community pointed out to us, well, you know, the Miller Fund exists to help the poor children of Dummerston, and that we should approach you and ask for reimbursement from that. And that's where we're at.
And also, we're coming up on the Christmas break, which is 8 full days, and these kids who are, by the nurse's estimation, in difficulty are going to need the lunches which we provided the last time. So it's actually not just that one thing that we did. This probably should be an ongoing observation of a group of minor children. It's not always going to be the same minor Dummerston children. They're all Dummerston children. They're all in the special lunch program. And, you know, there were some kids who had no boots. They had they had like a fleece, and that was it for the winter. And yesterday it was 14 degrees in the morning. This morning it was 16 degrees in the morning. So this, you know, I was thinking about Fred Miller and his desire to help the poor kids of Dummerston who have a need. And this is kind of a perfect fit for that. And again, we're willing to do the work part of it, meaning the shopping and getting things to the school. But we wonder if this might not be something that the Miller Fund could pay for.
What are you gonna do over the summer?
The church has a program over the summer.
Okay, great. What would you like to do? They have asked for $473.57 for clothing and $73.06 for food. I checked with Charlotte, town treasurer, this morning or this afternoon, and apparently we've made $801 in the fiscal year we're in now.
In interest
Yeah,
on the fund.
yeah.
And that was our conversation before, was trying to not spend more than the interest.
You know, each board, each select board is free
Louis, you
to interpret the Fred Miller's bequest as they, you know, see fit. And so there have been some people who feel, some boards that feel that, oh, you can only, the interest means whatever's been that year. And there are some that think, well, the interest is whatever is in that fund that's over the 19,000 that was originally put in the fund in 1927. So we have different interpretations, and it's up to each board to decide how they want to interpret that.
So in terms of this amount, is this a one-time amount? Or if we were to approve this, then would you want to sort of see money coming from this fund on a regular basis, annual basis for this need?
We would like to be able to, you know, submit receipts that, you know, for instance, we have a shopping trip on Friday to get food for the holiday break. And we budget $5 per day per child. And so we will be spending money again on Friday. We'd like to be able to then submit that receipt to you for reimbursement, if that works for you. Or we can save them up, you know, do it a couple times a year.
So, what are your thoughts? What would you like to do?
Well, a couple things. So I guess I kind of go with it's there's been a few expenditures out of this which were pretty significant, but you know, so I'm kind of on the interest of the past year thing, but generally for the Miller Fund, people come directly to us with their, you know, whatever they need. It's a request to the select board to bring out the Miller Fund for a direct expenditure. So when there's multiple ways of, I mean, you know, what you're doing is great, but you're also a charitable organization that Dummerston Cares. So do you want? So I do not see this as, you know, you coming in with multiple receipts on a you know, any kind of regular basis saying, you know, refund our account for what we're spending, because you're kind of doing it and then coming to us after the fact too. But
well, we did for this first, because, you know, to be timely with getting these kids clothes.
Right.
You know, we decided it at a board meeting and started shopping the next day.
Yeah. So, and I said, this is not like, you know, an inexhaustible fund. So, you know, you have other ways of raising money as well. So do you want like 100% reimbursement for this one, or is this something that you know, you want a percentage of? Because we're going to get other requests. You know, when the spring comes, we're going to get direct requests for other expenditures out of this. So this, it's one of those, it's like any budget. You know, you've got to look at it, and there's, you know, we can't, if you say yes to everybody, pretty soon you're going to be saying no to everybody because there's nothing left. So I just would like to balance how we take money out of this fund.
Well, I don't think we're looking to sort of undermine the usual sort of pathway, nor are we planning in any way to go search out situations to present to you. It seems to me as if there's the issue of winter clothing, which is the nurse had great concern about, and food for the longer breaks. I think there are probably 3 longer breaks.
Yes.
And I think that probably is what we're looking at doing. And we don't have to do it, but it's certainly easier for us to do it than it is for somebody else. And these are, again, this is not something the parents asked for. It's something the nurse has a medical concern about. I mean, you know, it was bothering her a lot that these kids weren't going to eat enough over the term of the vacations, and also that the kids were going to be cold. So I don't think, you correct me, this is not like we're taking on this mission of spending the Miller Fund. This is more, can you help out with this? Because it's kind of a special Dummerston problem. I was really upset when I heard that there were kids walking around this town with no winter clothes, and that they weren't going to have enough food for their vacations, for the vacation time. So I mean, is it appropriate for the Miller Fund to take care of this group of kids who are really kind of being protected by the school nurse? I mean, is that a reasonable use of the money? Understanding we're not looking to become a charity for little children.
Is the
Yeah.
school nurse still Mrs. Runge?
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Runge has known for years about the Miller Fund, and I know the years that I was on the board, one of the things that we always did was somebody would always tell her, if you see anybody that needs clothing, needs something, please submit it to the select board. I don't know where that ever got lost in translation with her, because I forget how many years I was on the board, and I think it probably went on after I was off the board, that she knows about the Miller Fund, and
Yes.
she has made requests to the Miller Fund. So for her not to have made these requests herself is sort of, I'd like to speak to her and tell her that I think it should be coming from her to.
Hasn't she recently, maybe?
No,
I
she
mean,
hasn't, maybe 2 years ago, she did.
It's because.
So she doesn't do it on on an annual basis?
She asked the need.
Camp for conservation camp.
Camp.
And something else last year.
The last one
Yeah, it
was,
seems like every
some
year I've
camp
been on the board,
scholarships,
she's
yeah.
submitted something.
Yeah.
And so, Louis, are you saying it should come through the nurse? That if it's for the school, then if it comes through the nurse, then we have a more of a single channel
Absolutely.
that's protecting the children.
Yeah.
She was, vetting the, situation. So we knew when she came, well, yes, these children were on the,
And she knows all the kids, and she knows the
Lunch
parents,
program,
the
yeah.
family situations, and
so
Um,
she was a reliable.
did she call on you? Like, how did you guys find out about this? How did
We
Dummerston?
contacted, one of our board members contacted her to find out what needs were going unmet.
I see. Just as Dummerston Cares, you
Yes.
did that. That seemed like a.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes, because we're trying to reach all age groups.
Mm-hmm. You gonna call him, Jody?
Jody Normandale's been patiently waiting.
I'm just questioning, Zeke, this Dummerston Cares is a wonderful organization, and I don't want to do anything to upset them or whatever. But a few years ago, and Louis may have still been on the board, there was a policy written exactly for this as to how things were going to be laid out. And I would think that policy would be in your file. And Hugh, I'm sure you probably know about it. I have a copy of it. And I know over the years, some of us have fought to use the Miller Fund appropriately and not take it down. And interest isn't as great as it used to be, so that's hard to go on the interest bit. And I know sometimes if somebody needs a pair of glasses, that Ms. Runge talks to you about that. But the policy said everything has to come through the nurse, and then the parents, apply for this. And as Hugh said, not after the fact. And I know there are kids without clothes. I know the church has this caring and sharing, where people, probably the Dummerston Cares could buy clothes or outfit people through the sharing and caring of the church too. I understand, Leslie, your feelings of frustration about kids going hungry and kids not having any food. So I don't know where you balance it, but I do know you have a policy, and I think at this stage of the game you should be following your policy.
I'm going to, my thought is that the nurse went to them maybe instead of us. It was because maybe they asked and we didn't. I'm inclined to go ahead with this one and then get in touch with the nurse and say, bring this through us. Jean Newell.
When you're through finished, when you're finished.
No, I'm waiting for some wisdom to.
I also am very pleased with having Dummerston Cares and how they've brought it back up to such a wonderful standard in the last few years. I also wanted to know if this is going to be a policy every year, because I know that that Dummerston Cares is given money through the town, through the community chest, and private donations. And I feel that if this is the way that it's going to happen, the standard should be, like Louis said, come through the nurse. And it just so happens that this amount of money is what, the Dummerston Community Chest, and here I'm talking about themselves, worked very, very hard for their money to give to the organizations. Now, if we should give it to the town to go into the Miller Fund rather than to Dummerston Cares, I don't know what's happening, but I think things need to be done properly and correctly. And I can really understand young children not having clothing, not having a lot of food. I grew up that way. So I just want them to also know that if they ask people to knit or do whatever to do things for these children, I think that'd be a wonderful idea. I'd be glad to knit.
You get a job.
But that's, I could sputter all night.
Can I make a motion that we pay $546.59 to Dummerston Cares for the coats and the food for the needy children of Dummerston?
Okay, I'll second that. Okay, discussion.
So I'm just gonna go back to, we're creating, no one disputes the need of clothing and coats and food. I don't think anybody disputes any of that. I think it's more, you did this, and then, you're an organization that also gets money given to you. And then after the fact, you kind of determine, oh, there's another pot of money, and you want to come take money from that, which is 5/8 of what we're really, in my opinion, supposed to give away this year. So I'm not inclined to vote in favor of giving you the entire $583.
$46, I think.
$546.
63 cents.
It's 59
And really, only because I think that,
63
we kind of have overlapping funds maybe, and I think, you get money also provided to you, and I think you were doing that out of just your own plan, because that's what you thought was the right thing to do. And then, after, discover there was some money that maybe could refill your account a little bit. So I'm not inclined myself to vote in favor of this right now, because it's going to deplete the fund quite a bit.
Does it really deplete the fund if you started out with how many thousands of dollars?
We have $800 of interest this year that we can spend.
I do understand that, but you were given a grant of, or somewhere along the line, $18,000?
19,000.
19,000.
And what's the account now?
It is, because some of it is in Vanguard stocks and some is in the money market, it's in the neighborhood of 100,000.
Okay. So again, this is an immediate, I'm just gonna say this, you guys don't know me, but I have to say it. This is an immediate need. We didn't know, I didn't know about the fund. We found out about it after the fact. And the question is, what's the appropriate venue? There's more than $800, and I'm not saying that this mode, which isn't in your mind, and maybe it isn't a good way to do this. I'm not saying that we should continue this mode, but I do think that there needs to be some kind of proactive process to make sure that the kids involved have what they need. And if you can reimburse us for this, we'll probably just do something very constructive with the money. It's not like we're looking to take money from a source that doesn't have any equity at all.
And I think we thought we had a process, that the nurse would come to us with this need. So, I mean, I myself am inclined to vote in favor of these funds for this purpose. But I also would like to follow up with a call to the nurse and reestablish that channel and have that be the typical for the children of Dummerston that are at the Dummerston school. So.
Right, we've been careful of how we've spent this money recently because we always have in the back of our mind that there could be a lot of the eyeglasses are paid for by the state now. A lot of the expenses that weren't paid for when Fred Miller established the fund are now covered by, Dr. Dinosaur or other programs. But we have always, the refrain that comes up year after year is what happens if, something happens to a kid. And we look at 100,000 in the context of, a month in the hospital or, something like that, and we think, oh God, that won't cover it. And so that's been when we've been reluctant to spend, it's been because we're worried about this worst case scenario that we might have to deal with. And so we keep this, in the vault, and we sometimes seem cruel and uncaring and to deny spending it on camp, but that's been some of our motivation and reluctance to spend this money. If we can find it someplace else, the money for these clothes, then that's what our preference has been. Just keeping this for what we all are afraid will happen someday.
And you mentioned that, you mentioned the amount of the money that was given back in the 20s as 18,000. If we ever drop down to that, you might as well just spend it all, because your interest on 18,000 is never going to give you anything to give to the children. So that's been the thought process for a lot of people on a lot of boards. We've had members on the board that said we should get it down to that number, spend that amount of money, because that's what it was said. But a lot of the board members that I've served with have said, you know what, that amount of money that we have now is probably comparable to what 100,000 was back then. And I hear somebody say less. I don't know who that was. Oh, that was Paul.
I'm sorry, I should have spoken up.
But no, and so to sit here and think to even consider going down or saying you've got this much money and, we can be using that money, I myself will fight until the last day that we can't go down to that. And if we spend that interest, like you said, the $801, that's pretty good. If we have to spend more than that in a year, we have to. But just to go out and to spend it and, have something going on every month, I don't agree with. But these coats and this food, I would say if Mary Ann Runge had come up here and requested this, we would have said yes. And that's why I made a motion to do this. And after this meeting, I will suggest to the board that I will go talk to Mary Ann and ask her to come to the board herself
Yeah,
with the
that would
request.
be great, I would like that.
And, but,
So just to clarify though, Zeke, if a child ended up in the hospital, would we provide $80,000 to that?
I don't know, it would be up to the board, but that's the request by Fred Miller was for the needy, the medical expenses and
Needy minor children
taking-
of Dummerston,
Yeah.
that's the way it's written.
so
Yeah.
that would be something the board would have to think about.
Uh-huh.
And if a request came, then
Okay.
they'd have to decide that. So, we probably, don't think we'd say, well, we only have $700 in the interest this year. That'd be-
Okay, well, it's just good to,
Yeah,
So, before I guess we'll call votes, but the last thing I'll say, I think that an appropriate organization has paid for it, and I'm happy with that status myself, so.
I just have a question.
yes.
If they're going to, if it has already been spent, the $500 for clothing, is there any way that this can be circulated each year? I mean, like, there's nothing wrong in wearing secondhand clothes. If these children grow out of these clothes, like she said, there's going to be more children in the next year and the next year for those clothes to get the proper wear, and for also helping Dummerston Cares, so they can not have not have to spend that much money every year.
Yeah, put the
Well,
need
we were
out.
able to outfit 8 kids.
Pardon?
We were able to outfit 8 kids for $473.
good job.
Yeah. We had set a budget of not more than $1,000 and not more than $100 per child. And our super shopper was able to do it for less than $500. You know, I've got receipts, I've got a photograph of, there's all the stuff.
Zeke, could I just make a comment? That maybe the Dummerston Cares put something out through the school newsletter requesting people probably turn in clothing from outgrown clothing, because the kids outgrow it in less than a year. And so for this need, I bet you'd find some clothing coming in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a program that the school, could provide. That would be great. I mean, I remember going down to the Gibson Aiken Center, and boy, that was a gold mine down there with all those used jackets, and we're still wearing some of them in my family.
Okay, so we've got a motion to approve this amount. It's been seconded. Any more discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, so the plan is, the ayes have it. We'll get in touch with the school nurse
And reimburse these costs through the Miller Fund.
yeah. And so going forward, we'll have the nurse come to us
Great.
for request to the Miller Fund.
Correct.
Anything else? All right. Good, thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Let's see. Okay, now, are there people here for playing games? Okay.
We're standing around the corner.
We could make you wait longer, but with the permission of the board, we could go ahead and address that, jump ahead of the
I'm up for
agenda. Okay,
Yeah, I know.
they've granted permission. So, and Christina Naylor is coming up to the
I'll join you.
podium. So we thought you'd lost interest in this project.
Just been a little busy at the Dummerston Town School Board lately. Yes, maybe you read about.
Christmas pageant?
So, trying to figure out where we are in this process, what the board's desires are. We had a recent request from Michael Chamberlain, because some of the snowmobile trail markers had gotten knocked over, and he said, are we welcome to still come across the school property? And I said, oh, I didn't know the trails went across the school property, and it's been nicely brush hogged recently, so oh yes, there is a snowmobile trail there, I can see it now. And I gotta be honest with you, my first response was like, oh, the liability, when are they running this? What do I do if there's a problem? And then I said, oh, wait a minute, that's Michael Chamberlain, that's Arnold, I know the people on the Snowmobile Club. If there's a problem, I'll pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, this isn't working out, fix it, and I know it will be fixed. And then it occurred to me, if we no longer own those fields, I have only the ability to give permission as long as the Dummerston Town School, I being the Dummerston Town School Board, only has the opportunity to give that permission so long as we are the owners of that property. If it ceases to be in ownership of the town, that will be in the hands of the merge board. And so I said that back to Michael and said that is all we can do, is I can only give permission when we own it. It's at the discretion of the principal, as it has always been historically. What happens in a merge board, I don't know. And it brought the subject up again, that where do we stand with that, where does the board stand? Because here's another opportunity, people have been using it historically and been good stewards of using it. And curious what the board's will is on doing this.
So you're coming to us just to get permission,
No.
get our concurrence for the snowmobile club?
No, it's reminding me that
Oh,
that
Okay.
it's in the select board's hands what might happen going
Ah.
forward with the other uses of our fields besides that which is school use, which is seventh and eighth grade, which are the only actual school teams.
you know, I would think that if the board did, you know, if this transfer did come, I think the board has made clear that they don't want to be the ones deciding whether the snowmobile club can use this. That-
Oh, and
Okay.
we have left it to the principal as
Yeah,
well.
okay.
Yes, that has been, we have left,
Right.
we didn't want to make that decision either and
All right.
have left it at the, we see eye to eye on that, and it was at the
Right.
discretion of the principal in the building.
Okay.
So wanted to come back and see where the board stood on this, what we need to get to you, if at all possible, to make this transition happen
Okay.
before a possible merger, and just hear from the board.
So-
And I don't know, Jody probably.
Well, yeah, I'm
Sure, Jody had something to say.
I'm sorry, I just lived here too long, I just can keep talking, right? I guess my concern now, I know there's some issues that you all feel that aren't clear, and I think we'd like to be able to clear them up. But I guess I'd like to ask the select board, back in November of 17, when we had the vote on the merger, Dummerston voted over 5-1 against the merger. And I guess I'd like to ask all of you on the select board, what do you think Dummerston would feel if down the road they lost ownership of that field and lost control of that field? I don't think Dummerston people would want that, quite frankly. So I'm encouraging you to work with us, and maybe sitting at a meeting here with a camera or whatever isn't the way to go, but I think if there are still questions going, I think a couple of select board members and a couple of school board members sitting down and going over what those questions are and trying to get those resolved, because I came to you guys 3 years ago and presented that this was going to be a possibility down the road and talked about it, and here we are 3 years later and nothing, we're still going back and forth about it, and nothing's being settled. I think the school board thinks that they've made changes, and there's one more change that we've made just recently here, and I think the select board feels that we're not making changes, and we need to talk about it, and we need to get it straightened out. That's my concern.
Okay, what are members' feelings and thoughts?
Anybody?
Don't all speak at once.
Yeah.
We wondered, I think, well, I'll just speak for myself, I wondered if you were still pursuing this, because we've had it on our agenda for the past, several meetings, and haven't seen you or heard from you. So, our understanding is that you guys have to have a public hearing in order to sell property.
Now, where do you get that understanding? Because I don't think we understand that.
I think that's state statute, that we don't need a public hearing to buy or accept property, but in order to sell town property, you have to go through a public hearing. So we sort of, we've felt, at least I think, the ball has been in your court, and we've been sort of waiting. I feel like I've been dressed up and no place to go. I'm waiting for my-
Doggone it, we'll take you to that dance, Zeke, come on.
Well, we wouldn't have a hearing unless we knew we had someone to sell
So
it to.
every time you've come, we've said, what's the sense of the board? And the board has said, well, we're okay with it, maybe we'd like another map, or, a shorter lease, and you've done all those things.
So you do have, the map is okay, you're set with that?
Well, some people like the map and some people don't. I think
Well, I guess that's the part that if
We
you
sort of
don't like
know.
the map and you want something else, we're happy to do it. I
Yeah.
just,
okay.
that didn't get
I'll
transferred.
let some
to-
other people, since we're,
I mean, we've taken care of the septic system, I hope, as to how that was done, we've got the map. What are the issues, I guess?
let's hear it. We'll put it out here.
You answered the one question Christina did from the last meeting, or 2 meetings ago, about if the unified board would honor the paid leases, the leases.
They would have to, we have
And you said they would.
many contracts that they have to as taking
But
over.
but the possibility does exist that they would only honor it through whatever the lease agreement was, and at the end of that lease agreement, they could then choose not to renew it.
That's true.
Yes.
I think I addressed that at the meeting before. I can't imagine a scenario where flat playing fields would not be utilized by the district, but if it wasn't, it would then be an asset of the town. It would belong to the town, and the town could decide to sell it, to create a new Miller Fund, an additional Miller Fund. The town could sell it to a private entity to manage it. It would be the town's decision, the town's municipality. If you didn't want to keep it as fields, it
Let
would
it
be
grow.
the town's discretion.
The new town forest.
But I do want to say one thing that I don't know if we all know on this board, because if this school closes, we can buy it back for $1. But here's the kicker on that, you got to take all the debt with it. So if they put something into this school, $1 million in, a heating system and a new roof, we don't buy it back for $1, we buy it back for $1,000,001. So the building's not worth $1,000,001, so we're not gonna buy that school back. So while we lose the school, if we don't take the land, we also lose the land. The district can sell that school, they don't have to sell it for the $1,000,001. They can sell it for $500,000 to whoever wants to buy it. But it's not $1. So they make it sound good, but if you look it up, it's with the debt that goes with that school. So whatever debt they do to that school, you pay on top of that $1.
I get to.
No, I was gonna say something, but I saw, no, that's all, I was gonna say something.
He's gonna call.
I'm not gonna get the two of you. Mr. Normandeau.
Can I just correct a little bit of what you said? It could be in the form of debt, but it would be any improvements that were made to the school, whether there was debt associated with it or not. So if the Unified School District spent $500,000 on improvements to school since the time they acquired it, then they would sell it back to the town for the $1 plus all the improvements that were made at that time. So it could be in the form of debt, or it could be in the form of just increasing assets.
Okay.
So,
That's interesting.
yeah, and the odds are, even if that occurred, even if you could buy it back for $1, chances are it would be a package deal. You'd get, we'll sell you the building and the land for $1, and the town might say, gee, we don't have the resources to manage and maintain a large facility like that. We don't know what we would do with it. So we won't buy it. And if we don't buy it, then you've lost the land also, because it came with the school. And, it's a very, very valuable asset from the town's perspective. You know, it's not very often you can acquire, I don't know what the value is, but let's say it's a couple of $100,000. You know, let's say it's $200,000 to $300,000, which is not, I don't think, unreasonable to think that way. Maybe, I saw Dan was here, maybe he'd have a better thought on that. But to acquire a parcel of land that's worth $200,000 or $300,000 for $1, and just the assumption of maintaining it, and it has no roof, no boiler, no painting required, I think is a deal. So even in the ultimate scenario that the town would have to take it over and mow the lawns, mow the fields, it's a bargain. And I think the citizens in this town, as Jody alluded to, I think would be very upset if they lost the use of that facility for recreational purposes, and to own it is to control it. And once you control it, you have the ability to determine its destiny. You know, and determine whether the town wants to keep it.
Okay.
I think you're quoting Shorty.
Well,
I think you're quoting Shorty.
We'd be accepting it and then immediately, you know, we'd spend, no, we'd be buying it, so you guys could spend the money, but,
You get the
and then
$10 back for the lease.
leasing it.
That's 100% return on your investment annually.
Yeah, so, we'd be leasing it to, if this happened in a timely way, to the school board. Then, which then, if that ceases to exist, becomes the unified board.
well, yeah, but let's look at.
But they would honor the lease for the
Yeah, I'm sure they
10
would.
years, or
I'm
is
sure
that
they
what
would.
it is, a 10-year?
But look at it the other perspective. If you're leasing it, if it goes to the unified school district, you've still lost control over it, you know, whether it's in the form of a lease or whether you transfer it. You have a residual interest in it once the lease expires. But you've lost the control of that for that period of lease. What I would like to see, I would like to see you own it. Lease it back to the school, and if ultimately the district, and ultimately, let's say, you know, the merger goes through and the court battle, we lose the court battle, and the forced merger takes place. If you own it, you could rent it to the district on an annual basis for the maintenance costs, rather than leasing it to them for 10 years where you lose control of it. You could do it on an annual basis, and I'll bet you they would do that.
There's already people who pay money for renting it now too, and I'm not sure what it is, what the amount is.
That's a whole other.
Yeah, yeah, I
But I
know.
think the mowing for the field portion is about Joe Carroll was in the office today, so I spoke to about $8,000 to maintain, to do all the mowing. And of course, that's mowing it to a level at which it's field use, which is a lot more often than what you would do if you were just maintaining open land, so. So that would be the cost going forward to whomever manages it. I happen to agree with Paul. I didn't feel that will on the board in the past that you really wanted much to do with managing the maintenance of the field, but it's a new board in many phases, so maybe that's something you'd want to take on.
But I'd like to get back to, if they have any questions that we can
Yes,
deal
thank you.
with.
Do you have any questions? What's your thinking on this?
Well, I think what you brought up, I think, because we talked, and I didn't realize that the debt, well, I don't know if we're gonna take any debt. Anyway, that was interesting. That's a good, that's a great point. I think really kind of pushes it in favor of this. But, yeah, I think we've kind of, the consensus has been we don't want to take on, like, managing this thing. We'll have to discuss that, I guess, and as it goes. But the consensus seems to be we've been in favor of it, but I was always under the impression that you have to have a special town meeting to.
It's the first I've heard of this.
I think we do have to have a special town meeting, but if you didn't want to take it, we needed to have an agreement from the select board that you wanted it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
We could
and
bring
get
this
to the
up.
point where we had an
Yeah.
agreement and we understood what it was before we warned a
Yeah,
special
so
town
we,
meeting.
I think we've been surprised that we haven't heard from you because you have to warn it. You know, I check with this, but not less than 30
it's the
days,
30 and
not
40
more
day.
than 40
We
days.
seem to have a lot of
You
those
know,
going on.
depends on the phase of the moon and, you know, a few other things.
Well, at this point, it almost seems like putting it on town meeting day would be the
You
time to do
you
it.
have plenty of time to do that.
We weren't making the November 30th deadline because of that.
Yeah,
By the time I'd answer, you know,
yeah.
and our meeting schedule and your meeting schedule, so we missed the November 30th deadline, which would have been nice, but I don't think necessary.
Right. Of course, if you know, 3 seats are up on the select board.
That's true.
So
That's
waiting
just what I
until
want,
town
another board.
meeting.
We don't have to start all over again.
Well, and that's what I was actually going to say to you. It might be in your best interest to do it sooner
Yeah,
than that, than later than that.
Okay.
so,
And I would say that it sounds like we would want to move forward with this as it,
I would agree with that. That'd be my
So-
opinion.
yeah.
Okay.
So you see, just like the other meetings you've been to, everyone's shaking their head.
Well, that,
And you have everything you need in terms
Yeah.
of the lease from the maps and the wording and the understanding of what's happening going forward. So we should go forward with,
Yeah. I would bring a better map to your special town meeting, but that's up to you.
Now, can I ask a question though? Now this gets into something that I didn't want to get into, but the
Oh,
kids of
Don't
Dummerston.
hold back, Louis.
Your lease is giving the total control to the school board, okay? For all of the land. Now, can we hold out a portion of that land for, say, the rec department of Dummerston? So you cut out a piece of that land so you could say for the rec department, because all the school activities that happen are for middle school and up. There is no, Brattleboro they don't have a baseball program. They have Little League, it's not school related.
right.
It's, you know, they don't have this. And all I was thinking is if you took out the ball field, because they do play, the middle school kids do actually play, the younger kids actually play soccer on that field.
and that's a rec thing, right?
This through the rec board of Dummerston. So you'd have the small baseball field and you would have, just taking that small baseball field and making that not be part of the lease that goes to the school board. The school, we wouldn't lease that portion back. I don't know if you can do that or not, that's a question.
We could, so, I think maybe the better way to do it would be to put a stipulation in the lease that would allow access to Dummerston Rec Board activities to be scheduled as it has been historically done.
There you go.
I like that.
We could do
Yeah.
anything like this,
Yeah.
as long as we own it, the town
Yeah.
owns it.
Rather than try to
I like
come up
the
with a better map.
stipulation.
Right. Yeah, I know, with your mapping skills, I guess that would be the better option, so.
I think that was the original, I
That's
think that was the
the original
original map.
Yeah.
That's in the deed.
That,
I think that
whatchamacallit,
was
who
written
sold
with a
it,
quill, actually.
the guy who sold the land.
Talk about the dark ages.
Yeah.
Something like that I would think would be a good thing to put into the.
Okay, so you would like to see in the lease going forward, wording to the effect that that the town of Dummerston rec board would have access to the fields as has historically occurred.
Yes,
And I'm sure Michael would do a better job wording that than I ever could, but,
well, I think you did an
Okay.
excellent job.
okay.
But you got a hand up too.
Yes, Dan Normando.
Oh, he's here.
Darn.
Family affair.
Just to be clear, it sounds like the select board is in favor of moving forward with the purchase. It sounds like there's some details to be worked out with the terms of the lease. One of them just floated down,
Yeah.
right? I'm not trying, so the school board needs to come back to you with what they would consider a final lease? Is that the next step? Or,
I'd say.
or just the next step is
we
warning
just
the meeting?
talked about it. I'd go ahead and warn the meeting.
Okay,
That's what I'd say too.
okay, I just wanted to be, try to be clear.
Yeah,
And
and if you can,
And then the terms of the lease, the way I look at it, if I may, I'm not up there, but the way I look at it is get the land transferred. And the details of the lease could be worked out shortly thereafter or before, and they could always be modified.
Right afterwards. too.
Because the important thing is to effect the transfer and decide whether you want a long-term lease. You could have a short-term lease. But it's more of a, does the town approve the transfer? That's the big hurdle in my mind.
so that's what we'd like to go forward with sooner rather than later.
Thank you.
Anything else? I'm writing these things down here.
I was just wondering, so is the town actually gonna buy it then and then lease it? Is,
Yes.
yes, all right, okay.
We're taking it out of the road fund.
Yeah.
We'll be done with it longer.
Once the board, the school board has a public hearing and is authorized to sell the property, then the town would buy it and then lease it back.
Michael.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so why don't we just, touch base about the warning and just so we
All on
know
the same
that
page.
it's happening. And
Yep.
I don't know if it's soon enough, so just for your planning, February 13th, we're already having a public meeting. And
February 13th.
what's the next one we're doing? Check these.
And what's that one on?
So we're on February 13th.
Gravel pit
Oh, gravel.
informational.
Yeah, that's gonna be at the school gym. So we're on February 13th, we're doing a meeting there, so just to deconflict. And then on February 15th,
Wow, you're busy.
that's a warning. On February 27th, we're gonna have another informational meeting based for an Australian ballot. So those two dates, just, I don't know if that would even be in your timeline, but
It
the
would be.
13th and the 27th, I would try to work around.
You wouldn't want to try to team them up, huh?
That's up to you.
That's sort of
You wanna
like
do it.
chewing gum and walking.
You know,
We'll get tired and go home.
it almost is not a bad idea, this is gonna be a two-town meeting on February 13th, so it could potentially go,
Already too long.
yeah.
And the 20.
The 27th is just gonna be a regular select board meeting, but
Okay.
it's gonna be
Okay.
we may pick a different venue because that is a special, whatever the term is, because we're having an Australian ballot.
Informational.
An informational meeting, so it could be
Okay.
a larger
You wouldn't
audience.
have the Australian ballot on the gravel pit?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, so both of them gravel pit.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Thank
just
you.
those 2 days.
So those don't work. Okay.
Yeah, I would work around those.
Terrific.
Okay.
I'm held to an hour and a half standard as a school board chair, so good luck with that, guys. I get demerits if my meetings go more than an hour and a half.
Well, with you gone, we're at that.
Oh, no, let's not leave here.
I'm quick.
Thank you.
Oh, I don't need that anymore. Okay.
All right, time to go to 99.
That's the first time I heard about that.
I just want to see what else is on the agenda. I missed
They
it.
didn't mention that on TV.
Okay, so,
Which part?
The debt.
But that was just, that's just the school. We're not talking about buying the school.
Right, but
we would take it out of the highway.
Yes.
I want 32 inch more.
Okay, so here's our esteemed road foreman, Lou Chamberlain, with his very brief report.
Yes. Okay, so, you might have seen the load of logs up at the town office. Town office, town
I
rec.
didn't see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That was donated by Longview Forest. They've been doing quite a bit of work in town, and so they just called up one day and said they'd bring us up a load of logs, and we'd like to put it, so that's that.
And you'll use that for heating?
Yeah, town clerks and the town garage. We are trying to sell the old low band radios, the ones that we took out of the truck. we're even trying to get any kind of an offer just to bring it back to you, but we aren't even getting that, so. Just a little update on that.
Okay. So if someone's interested, they
Yes.
just get in touch with you at the town garage?
Yep, and there's ours and new fans, so. Because they did the same thing that we did. And they're having the same problem, trying to get rid of them. So the community center had, Gene Romney had talked to me about some leaning trees that were leaning over the building.
Yep.
And some brush. They're gonna put up a building for an antique wagon. So we'd like to get trees down before that happens. We've been over there, cut all the brush. Tree company person went over there to look at the trees. He would just top them so we could get them cut down. And some of that wood, since we have plenty this year, and some of it's ash, which is not gonna last very long, we're thinking about bringing over to the wood pantry, so then they can mark it up. And I thought about asking them to, if they wanted to go over there, but it's the same kind of thing. It's on town land, and people using chainsaws, but, so, okay, so we've been working on brush on Camp Arden Road. We're gonna go to Old Ferry Road, next, and also, North Hollow. That is actually a, Class 3 through the gates. And, I tried to run the grader out to fix a couple things, and I actually broke a light on it, and the limbs are just hanging down. So we do have to go out there and do some work. We are having a few issues with people parking in the actual road, or because it has a gate across it. So we're trying to get that stuff moved also. Well, we will get that stuff moved, it's one way or the other. So those are those. I didn't know Dummerston Cares was coming tonight, but I was gonna bring up the EOC upstairs, about the, I talked to Rich Cogliano, and, there's a lot of stuff that you don't need
I
anymore.
remember seeing it, yeah.
Lori and Charlotte, we talked about, putting tags on, there's printers up there, there's computers, things that we don't need up there, and then if somewhere in the office they can use them, we might be able to use some of those things. The Racy's, is all set up for like, the radio system and everything. I was gonna ask Rich, I know other towns, I don't believe have that anymore, they don't need that either. And I guess it was just a matter of, I think the less stuff we have up there, the easier it will be to clean up and.
Repurpose that room?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we do have a, new part-time person that hasn't worked yet, but he's willing. And even going up there during ice storms to do what Don did for us, as far as relaying information, writing down roads closed, and those kind of things, so, Skip Fletcher, Brattleboro Water Water Department, I think, he was the boss down there, but he retired. He's willing to do a little plowing at nights and those kind of things, and he's pretty knowledgeable, and he doesn't mind doing those kind of things, so.
Great.
Does he live in Dummerston?
Yes, Ryan Road.
Right.
Yeah. So, it was 10 o'clock with Rich upstairs. And then if it's any question at all, we'll just set it and we'll check with whoever would like to decide, you know. I think a lot of stuff needs to be thrown out,
Yeah.
put it that way.
Right.
But if it's anything questionable, we'll have a pile. So, and then I know Lori mentioned to you today about Ron Hubbard got a price for the paint for the building.
Yeah.
We measured it all up, and he called
This-
it the
this building.
WW. Yeah, it's starting to peel pretty good, and we're talking about, I don't know if I really want to say this, but we were talking about painting ourselves next year, and this would be the paint, renting a sprayer to spray. We don't have any like that. We don't have a sprayer. Just spray the paint.
Power washer?
Yeah, power washer and a paint sprayer.
Ah,
You know, to do them both, and we'd rent an actual lift.
You talking about the town office?
Yeah.
Now that we've painted next door, it looks worse, right?
Yeah. Well, it's just, yeah, it's time.
They were
And
painted
if
at the
we
same
wait-
time.
If we wait too long, it's gonna be, it's not gonna be that, I don't wanna say the easy fix, because it's never easy, but, there doesn't look like any rot. We checked that out. No, nothing that we could see. A lot of like mold on the backside and those kind of things. So we thought we would give it a shot, but that would be either the capital plan or however you'd like to work it.
4,000?
Yeah, 4,000 or 5,000, and I think that's plenty. It's 1,200 for the paint and all that kind of material. The renting the lift and renting, and I have a couple leads on some sprayers and stuff, but to rent those, I think we can do it for under that, but.
Gee, we should have contacted you.
Yeah, exactly.
So you'll be saving the town money by having the road crew do it?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Ron, you know, he works through the summer now, and he's been doing a lot of the projects in here, what he's doing. And, you know, the toilet and, you know, all those kind of things. I think it's a way to save some money, and I believe it will turn out fairly good.
Okay. Good. So,
Do you wanna get it, have you had any estimates?
Right, and I talked to Lori about that, if we should get an estimate, and we can.
I think you should.
Okay, and see.
Get at least one or two.
All right, okay, we can do that.
Jody, what did it cost you over there?
You know, I was just thinking that myself. I wish I had the figures. I could let you know. We did have a couple of estimates, and they were like this apart. The young man that did it found he had extra work to do, more than his estimate, because of what we found there. But it was very reasonable compared to the other estimate that we had. You're going to get them all over the ballpark.
Do you mind,
Letting you know?
yeah, or Lori,
Yeah,
who
I'll let
it
Lori
was,
know.
so then we can ask
Yeah.
that person.
Okay.
I'll
I'll try
I'm
to
not
remember.
familiar, I've seen him out there, but I didn't know.
And what building are you talking
The
about?
Historical Society next door.
Oh, okay.
And we ran into a lot of issues.
Because we did the community center.
yes.
Okay, call Lori. Okay,
Mommy, yeah.
Mo.
yeah.
What do you guess for a timeline on that, if you guys did that?
Right, I would think a couple weeks, not that we'd, be able to like start it and finish it in that 2 weeks, but I would say somewhere in there.
Mo didn't make a
Yeah.
proposal.
It is,
Just grab a couple, just give an estimate. Probably
I mean,
at least
I
two.
definitely wouldn't mind not doing it, but I do think that it needs to be done, and if, and I can picture the estimates being, you know,
Okay.
13 and 14,
So,
so, but we can get them for sure.
let's,
One of them was higher.
yeah.
I'll let Lori know.
If we can get some estimates in
Yep.
time for this budget, that'd be good,
Okay,
putting out.
yep, we'll do that.
All right.
Other than that, I didn't,
Just let us know where you want it to come off from.
The sand, I think.
the what? Yeah, that's all right.
Truck.
Yeah.
We hesitated, didn't we?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Great.
Questions? I think we're gonna give a little update later about the pet, right? Or is it pretty,
Yeah, we will give an update publicly, and then
I'll leave you to your.
you wanna go into a session to?
whatever you would like?
Okay, let me think about it.
I'll stick.
Okay, thanks.
I'll let you, I'll let
No,
you
I'm gonna
block.
stay.
Oh, you're gonna stay?
Yeah.
All right, is there anything under correspondence for information you'd like to discuss?
Well, it's not on here, but we have had it on the past
Wait,
agenda.
okay.
So I'd like to
That was part
mention,
of the
Right.
recognition of, okay, go for it.
so there's a land conservation effort in town for a piece of property that's being called the Deer Run Nature Preserve. And the group of people that are bringing this forward are called the Green Mountain Conservancy, and they'd like to apply to the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board for funds to assist with the parcel. And they'd like to know what the sentiment is of the board relative to this, to see if we would
And in the
provide a letter of support.
interest of full disclosure,
Right.
some of,
Yeah, so I will say that this property, the Deer Run Nature Preserve, has been inherited by my husband and brother-in-law, Alex and Chris Wilson. Sam called to see what the sentiment of the board was, if the select board would be interested in writing a letter of support for this in their applying to the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board for funding to assist with the purchase of the property.
okay. Okay, what's their timeline?
What's their timeline? They would come to our next regular meeting to talk to us about it if we had questions.
Okay, all right. So we don't have to decide tonight? then?
No.
Okay.
And it's just about this, I mean, they're not asking for money, they're just asking what our feeling is about
Okay.
applying for funding.
Do they have any other public meetings? I know like a couple Thursdays ago, I think they had one over at the community center, but I was gone. So I want to go. Is there anything else planned to talk about that, you know?
Think so.
Okay.
I think
It was a
they,
very well-run meeting, it was pretty impressive. Yeah, I thought it was gonna be really boring, but it was quite interesting.
I think there's a video
I learned a lot.
of the meeting that's
Yes,
available.
yeah, it was filmed, BCTV filmed it, so you could probably find it.
Okay.
Yeah. It was December 6th from 7 to 8:30 at the community center.
Okay.
Okay.
So will you put it on a future agenda? Is that
We
what
can,
you'd like?
We certainly can, sure.
And then we could ask questions and,
Right. Is that what would you like to do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why we wouldn't have them come in.
Yeah, let's put it on the next
Okay.
agenda. Yeah.
Great, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe someone other than Sam Farwell, just between
Oh,
you and me, he
okay.
does go on quite a long time. And, you know,
well, that's why I thought if we could just say tonight whether we were in favor or not, then it would be done. But it's just looking for the sentiment of the board. But if it involves a whole conversation and people have different opinions, but if it's just a simple, hey, yeah, this is a great idea, nobody has any issues with it, then it's done. But,
I don't know anything about it.
okay, good,
So-
well,
okay. So,
I guess I was the only one at that meeting.
okay, all right. So there is a video of the meeting, so if anyone wants to look at that, they can look it up and see what's going on.
Yeah, the game warden was there, right, talking about it, the land trust, and that.
And
okay.
Roger Haydock was there, talked about it, Patty Smith talked about it. Yeah, it was quite a informative meeting. It would be worth watching.
Mhm.
Okay, all right. So, under correspondence for discussion and or action, the auditors have requested, a select board report for the town report. Anyone want to, and actually, if you saw, the Views is looking for an article, so. Anyone feeling creative?
I'm not.
A great opportunity to,
I'll put a spreadsheet in there for him, how's that?
discuss
There
the
you go.
gravel pit.
A couple pages for them.
What,
When's the
what,
views?
How about, you
When's the
wanna
view?
do a Views? How about, I'll
When's that
do,
due? What's that?
let's see, when is the Views due? Always seems like,
January
Mid-January sometime.
15th, I think.
really, really that?
That far out?
Yeah.
Wow.
Rachel wrote the last article for the Views, and it did kind of, it had a listing of things that we've done and been involved in. I don't know if that would be helpful for the town report.
It might be good, for Views to have a discussion of the gravel pit details, because that would go to
gosh.
every.
That's totally what it should be.
It would, it's a matter of what I guess by the time it publishes, hopefully we'll have a purchase and sales agreement.
It would be published before town meeting.
Yeah,
So what could you say?
so, it can be very general.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
have enough, so.
If you want, I could
Very
write
well.
the town report
Okay.
one, which would be,
Yep.
That would be awesome, Zeke.
yes,
Very
recap of our dog and pony show,
Yes.
is that what they call
Yes,
these things?
yes.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Okay, all right, well, cross that off the list. Okay, under new business, we have an amendment to the grand list that are the listers, which consists right at the moment of G. Newell, have sent to us, and this is changing parcel, making an adjustment, and she'd like us to approve this.
I'll make a motion that we approve the, let me read this right out loud so I can say this. Approve the title VSA section 4261, the following amendments for the grand list for Francis Mannix and Trust.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so everyone signs that. Okay, we have done the Miller Fund. Anything on the DRB hearing schedule for the gravel pit, or any updates on the gravel pit?
So, yes, I'll give you a little bit here.
I'm wondering, does anyone need a nap or anything?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. How about you, Lee?
Yeah, sure.
So the DRB hearing is, that's January 8th. So I did all my scheduling to have Wednesdays off for these meetings.
Oh.
So I'm not here at the moment on that Tuesday.
On January 8th?
Correct, for the DRB hearing. So, whether I adjust that or be able to, I can't tell you. Our schedules were out before they gave us the January 8th. So, I don't know if Louis, we could sit down with those permits and go over those things.
Get together and.
Yep.
Okay.
And we could kind of look at those.
That's a Tuesday.
If anyone else, if I don't want to
Oh,
adjust.
sure, I'll go.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then the question is, do we want, or do we think we need Bob Fisher to attend that hearing with us?
What are your thoughts?
Honestly, I was hoping I was gonna be there, not that I, could do what he could do, but I don't think it really should not be that kind of a controversy, and I think even if once, it's almost an opportunity to get the landowners on board, because it's gonna, the way that pit's gonna operate, it's gonna actually reduce, blasting and crushing and things like that, in the short term. It really, in the whole term, just, as it draws down, we're gonna be crushing and blasting every few years. So it's a good opportunity to get them on board. I don't see anything controversial. I think we could probably get away without him.
Okay.
That'd be my opinion.
That would be good for our overextended
Right.
budget
I
for
do.
legal services.
I think, we just want to, we need to come in and get our zoning administrator to sit with us,
Yeah.
review the 2 permits, kind of prepare our presentation, which, you know, it's not that significant, and then really it should be straightforward.
And if there are legal questions that come up, you write them down and get them answered.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have a meeting, right?
Yep.
Okay, let me know,
Okay.
and I'll.
But if there's 3 select board members that would be having a meeting to discuss that?
Yep.
Sorry,
It's out there now.
just saying.
It's really, but it's a, whatever, it only needs a 24-hour notice. So I mean, I'd almost say warn this thing tomorrow, and if you guys are available Friday morning, at least to start, because Lee and I are
Okay.
gonna be going over some stuff on Friday morning.
This Friday.
If you wanna do it
During-
later,
No, the rain,
yeah.
yep, I'm not gonna prune.
And 10 o'clock is also that meeting with Rich Cogliano on Friday at 10.
So that's, but he don't really need to be upstairs, right, you could be up there. So we're gonna sit, work over some spreadsheet stuff, but I think we can also, if you can get the permits tomorrow, take a look at them, and then we can talk about those things Friday morning. And then that'll give us at least a baseline to figure out if we need to get together again and do it. And I don't know if Roger will be here, but I think certainly Friday we could get together and.
Is that one of Roger's work days, Friday?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't remember.
I don't think it is, but.
Okay, so we need to get the conditional use permits 3309 and 3359.
Yep.
So we're familiar with them.
Yep.
So, do you want me to email Lori and ask her to post that there'll be a special
Yes.
select board meeting?
And he actually has a folder in there with all this stuff. I think I can find it because they just did all the 5-year reviews
Right.
on both of them within the last 6 months or so.
What time will you meet? Because she'll have to put that in the warning.
What's good, 8:30, 9 o'clock,
8:30 works for me, 8 o'clock.
8:30 would work fine for me.
8:30?
Okay.
Okay, let's do that.
Yep, so I'll email Lori.
Okay,
Have her
Um,
post that.
right, then we'll do the agenda at some point.
Oh, well, next week is only a budget meeting, so I can just do
Okay,
that.
yeah, yeah.
So I'll do that,
Right.
okay.
All right,
So, the only other thing with the gravel pit is, so last Friday I talked to Bob, and he was expecting a purchase and sales agreement to be worked on this week. I tried, he was not in today, so whether we get it by the end of the week, I don't know, but some of the things that seem to be moving along, but, you know, we've kind of had these starts and stops. But as of last Friday, Mike's attorney was working on the purchase and sales, so I trust that that's progressing for that one.
Will that be contingent on the vote at town meeting?
Yeah, so we'll have it, and then once, so that's the other thing when I was talking about, I really just want to get the numbers out there so people can see these numbers, you know, and then they got the material, that's public, but, you know, if we get the money out there, make that public. I think it's important to get it out sooner than later. You know, Bob, you had a good point. It's really until we get that in our hand, we don't want to do it. So, you know, it's obviously not going to be tonight, so it'll probably be the first meeting in January that we can get that out there. And then, by then, though, you know, we've been working on a spreadsheet, just, you know, kind of comparing a business plan for without the pit, with the pit, you know, and kind of, you know, it's kind of dire if we don't, in some ways, with the commercial use of that pit, it's going to be exhausted fairly quickly, you know, with the amount of material coming out of it. Then it's just going to be ledge, they'll be blasting
If we
that.
don't,
If we
purchase
don't,
it.
right, if it stays as a commercial pit,
it's, yeah,
it's going
Used
to
up.
go out pretty quickly, so, yeah, I think, you know, it's certainly in the best interest of town. There's a lot of other things, you know, where do we get our stuff after that if we don't
Right,
have that pit?
right.
So we've kind of come up with costs associated with that as well.
good.
Let's see, I think that's good there. I hope I did this, I don't know if you guys saw this little schedule, but I think just because we do have, you know, being a government body, we got all these timelines we gotta meet, and, you know, if we get too far down the road, so if you would just, you know, I try to start with town meeting and then work up and fill things in, and I think if you see more that need to be filled in, but, you know, we talked about we have the window for warning town meeting. I think if that's about, just below that first yellow line, if we don't have it, but I think that's correct. So the.
We don't have yellow on ours.
Yeah. You don't?
Nope,
Jeez.
no yellow.
So the one, it's about halfway down, January 20 to February 4th, window for town meeting warnings. So as we develop our warnings, we need to get those in. The informational meeting, which is a couple lines below that, February 13th. I have talked to the school principal. So far, I think she's really done everything. She's gonna have it set up just like a town meeting for us. You know, we're gonna have the
Right.
microphones, you know, all that stuff to go on with it. So that's gonna be locked on. We'll have our regular meeting. Putney will be there. So this is a joint meeting with Putney, February 13th. We'll both do our little select board meetings, if we can keep that agenda, honestly, to just paying the bills, you know, and then we can move right in from our select board meeting to the informational meeting. That would be good. And then February 5th, so right below that, we have to have it, based on, because this is a bond, it's gonna be an Australian ballot for the bond. So because of that, within 10 days of town meeting, is this correct, Zeke? Within 10 days, we have to have an informational meeting. So what I did is, if you look at the February 27th, we have a regular meeting to this, and I think what I see at that meeting being is any questions that were posed during the larger two-town meeting that we don't have answers for, we can get those answers and then bring those back to whoever shows up on the 27th. And then at the same time, that'll be our informational meeting for the Australian ballot. So if you guys want, if you get a chance to look at this, just.
Put the dates on our calendar, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and make sure, because we've let this get to the wire where if we miss a timeline, we're out of luck. You know what I mean? So if we miss a window, you know, leading up to town meeting, we have no recourse to fix that,
Right.
you know, if we miss so just check the dates and, for me if you would. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
The one thing on the question, I don't know if it was asked to Bob, if you'd got a hold of him, but they were wondering on bonds if Putney could get a 30-year bond and we would get a 25, or if both towns have to have the same length bond. I don't know if that question was raised to somebody who might know that. I don't know if Bob,
I don't think we've ever asked that question, and the bond is based on, you know, the full faith of your town, not necessarily the land. But that's a good question. So let me, I'll try to add that in something that's another 15 minutes.
Yeah, don't go over that.
yeah.
So different timelines for the bonds is the question.
Right, because that sounded like Putney might be leaning towards a different one than what
True, yeah.
we were.
I'll ask him that, thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anything else? Any other questions? Okay, we meet at Friday at 8:30. Okay, going down, we've already done our school playing fields. We could, if we were, you know, completely out of our minds, we could work on the budget. And
You kind of set that
I'm
one up.
going to hope that we maybe think about the budget a lot and come up. You know, I was thinking we could maybe take next week off, but the next time we could have a work session on Wednesday would be the 26th. What do people think about that? Anyone? Okay.
I'm not committing to the 26th
Okay,
myself yet.
all right. Anybody else wanna?
Whatever day you guys wanna do it.
I'm here.
Okay. All right, you're probably gonna wanna get out of the house by then, you know? So let's go ahead and say we'll meet on the 26th, 5 o'clock,
Okay.
all right? And
Town office is closed that day.
we'll have to bring the keys
You-
and...
No, you'll have to build a fire.
Oh, wasn't Lee built?
Oh, yeah, we worked that day. Yeah, fire better be going.
Okay, we'll,
Just don't want you to be cold while you're working on those figures.
all right. Okay, do we need an executive session? Was there anything?
Unless you have any questions on these spreadsheets, they're really still, we started to, unless you have a question, no.
Okay.
Unless you really need to know something dollar-wise, dollars and cents-wise, then the answer is, in my opinion, no.
Okay. Any other business? Did you, okay, other business? Okay. Well, I guess I don't really have anything.
I mean, do you want, do you guys need any explanation on how we're breaking down the material and the budget for the gravel pit, or you want to let us?
I think it was, I thought I understood it.
Okay.
I think our next, when we revise the numbers and stuff and get them, we're gonna be fairly close. We're kind of combining a couple things.
So we're meeting again Friday morning to after we go over we had a lot going on Friday morning, so
Yeah.
we'll update those, and then
Okay.
the next time, I think we'd be in a better position to have that meeting to go over the numbers.
Okay. Anything else?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.